Fear is not real. It's the product of thoughts that you create. Danger is very real, but fear is a choice. And as for danger, danger is merely a step to pass by on your way to feeling alive. Come experience Hawaii shark encounters today.
Hi, my name's Trevor Carlson. I was lucky to grow up right on the water in Hermosa. So my front yard was the beach, and my earliest experiences surfing were probably around 5 years old. My mom introduced us to the water and basically let me and my brother go run free. So my whole childhood was me and my brother surfing together, playing together, just spending as much time as we possibly could on the beach. I spent 10 years of my childhood on swim team, and then a lot of my childhood in water polo. I did surf PE, surf club, through high school and middle school, and that was basically like a non-competitive, you still got credits for a class, but we got to go surfing in the morning, and it didn't revolve around the competition. Whereas they had a surf team, but that just wasn't really my style. The competition for me was stressful. It wasn't really fun. I spent all my summers in junior lifeguards, and from there, the attainable dream for me was to be a lifeguard. And I wanted to be a lifeguard at that time on the beach where I grew up. But then as I got older, I realized that even those guys are seasonal. And where could I go and make this a career and spend the rest of my life on the beach working as a lifeguard? So I decided at 17, 18 that I was going to go to Hawaii, and I was going to do everything I could to get hired there as a lifeguard, regardless of all the reasons that everybody told me I wouldn't get hired there. And I actually flew out to Hawaii for a week, took the lifeguard test, and I got the job. And I lived in a van at Sunset Beach for a few months, just right when I first got here, because I didn't really know where I was going to live or what I wanted to do, and I just knew I wanted to be on the North Shore. For me, it was like the dream of moving to Hawaii and posting up in front of my favorite surf spot every day. So when I came to the North Shore, I showed up with 2 surfboards, and now it seems silly to me. At the time, I showed up with what I thought was a step up. Basically, I showed up with a 6'6" single fin, pretty retro board that was pretty thick and paddled well, and from where I came from, that for me was like a big board. And I showed up with this retro twin fin fish that was my everyday board. And I thought I was going to be able to show up and surf pipe on my single fin and surf sunset, and very quickly I learned that maybe that wasn't the ideal equipment. Showing up out here, I think the first time I saw waves on the North Shore was at Sunset Beach, and that morning when I woke up, it was completely flat. It was literally like a lake, no waves, summertime. And by the time the sun had set that evening, it was like 6 to 8 foot sunset. What I thought was really big waves. And I was blown away at how beautiful it was and how quickly it rose. And for me, that was mind-blowing. Now it's been quite a few years since then. So for me, I could say my #1 hands favorite spot would be Sunset Beach. I'm a regular foot, so for me that's like a front side dream wave. It's the perfect training wave for big waves. It's fun from 1 foot to like 15 feet. And I would surf Sunset like 6 or 8 hours a day, every day I could, no matter, that was just my absolute favorite place to be. Now I don't know how I lasted so many hours in the water. So after moving to the North Shore when I was 18, In the beginning, I was all about surfing Sunset, and still to this day, that's my favorite place to surf. I ended up getting like an 8.0 that for me was a really big gun, and I went out and surfed Waimea. We paddled out alone. It was actually a really big day. Like even to this day, there was a couple closeout sets. I ended up taking the biggest wave I'd ever seen in my whole life on my head, and I broke my board, and I was absolutely just blown away at how big these waves were. And I went to the beach just in shock of how destroyed I got. But I really wanted to keep surfing, so I drove straight to Surf and Sea, and I bought a 10.6 gun, and I drove straight back to Waimea, and I paddled back out. At that point, I was like really hooked. And from there, I started surfing my 10.6 everywhere, like at sunset all the time. And I started surfing it at any size bay I could find, and I was immediately hooked on surfing big boards and big waves. That was just a lot of fun. And then my 3rd year out here, I started surfing the outer reefs, and that was this whole new realm for me, because now I wasn't surfing Waimea with 30, 40, 50 other guys shoulder to shoulder. All of a sudden I was with 1 or 2 friends on an outer reef somewhere, like in the middle of the ocean. And the best part is there's nobody watching, there's nobody judging. Everything you do out there is not recorded. Everything you do out there is just what you do for yourself.
Waiting for you in the sleepy town of Wailua on the north shore of Oahu is the best pizza in all of Hawaii. At Jerry's Pizza, it's not just pizza, it's an experience. Come on down and experience Jerry's Pizza for yourself. And make sure you come check out our new location in Kalihi.
For the most relaxing and authentic Hawaiian vacation, visit Paradise Bay Resort. Whether you're from the other side of the world or looking for a local getaway, make our paradise yours. Paradise Bay Resort is located on the Kaneohe Bay, which has the largest protected barrier reef of all of the Hawaiian Islands. Experience true Hawaii and make Paradise Bay Resort your home away from home.
Hey, Daddy, how's soap made?
Oh, it's funny that you asked. I'll show you. And that's how soap's made.
Cool, Daddy.
My first introduction to big waves was probably watching Laird tow Jaws, and from there seeing the photos of the guys at Mavericks. And I think when I was a kid, I don't even remember wanting anything to do with Mavericks. I wanted to come to the North Shore and surf Pipeline and surf waves like that. That seemed more realistic to me. Watching the videos of Jaws and Mavericks to me just seemed crazy. And then it was a slow, gradual evolution into wanting that. For me, the idea of big waves was surfing an outer reef alone with a couple friends. And that was my idea of surfing big waves, is we get to go do this thing that's, for us, was like slaying dragons, but we get to go do it with nobody watching, and it's just this thing that we do. And from there, I started seeing this Jaws paddle revolution just in the very beginning phases, and I felt like I had to be part of it. My whole life changed. I was immediately obsessed, and my whole goal after that was I didn't want to miss anything. I wanted to be there for every single jaws swell. I wanted to be the first guy in the water on every single day. So every single day I was the first guy on the rocks in the dark. And I was very lucky that my mom lives on Maui. So for me, these jaws swells were pretty easy when it comes to making it happen. I wasn't getting a hotel every time I went. My mom would kind of chauffeur me from her house back to Jaws and Forth. And she made it very easy for me. Social media has made us so aware of all the different big waves that are out there that now, the moment there's a big swell, you immediately start seeing photos of these waves in real time. And so, all these jaws swells, I kept seeing photos from Mavericks. And then finally, I was on the cliff talking with a friend one day, and I was telling him, like, man, I would love to go to Mavericks one day. That it just looks like the next step of this chase of big waves. And so he was like, yeah, if you want to go surf Mavericks tomorrow, he's like, I got a friend who will meet you at the beach and paddle out with you. And so I literally jumped on a red eye that night, flew to California, and the next morning surfed Mavericks for the first time. So February 4th was the best day of Mavericks this year, and maybe the best day ever paddled from what I hear as well. It was A grade, as good as it gets, good conditions from mid-morning until dark. I drove from the airport straight to the beach, and I off the red eye, and then I paddled out on February 4th. And my theory is on these days is that I try to ride bigger boards after taking red eyes because they're just so exhausted. That day I decided to ride a big 10.6 because I just had no energy and I needed to make up for that. I caught 4 waves that day. My first was a wipeout, and all of a sudden I was like, okay, I'm awake now. And then my second wave, I got a barrel, which isn't really normally what you're looking for out there. Like normally that's not really even a line that's approachable. But I found one that I thought I was even going to make it. Like I actually for a moment believed I was going to make it, and it just pinched on the end. Like I just got the best Mavericks wave of my life. It's like maybe I should just try something different, and I'll go paddle outside, see if I could find one. And then I found one, and I actually was able to roll in one off the second reef. To me, that was the wave I had been looking for. Is I've always wanted to catch one out there. So I paddled back out, and I started sitting in the lineup, realizing that like I don't really want to sit with everybody. And so I paddled 100 yards outside the farthest guy, and because that's usually where the second reefers stay. And then I found one more. I would think the bigger ones would be big and scary and on the bowl and barreling, but this one was like this big, easy roll-in wave that was it's just a perfect, easy wave. And it's funny to say perfect, easy wave, but when the water's that glassy, it was just, I didn't have to do anything. All I had to do was stand there. And then after that, I was totally done. At the end of the day, we were just blown away on how many good waves we saw that day. And it took me 5 trips to figure out my approach to the wave. And basically what that means is there's a seam in the wave. And there's this one spot on the wave where you can't go a foot deeper, but you could always be more on the shoulder. And the hardest part of Mavericks is finding that seam. And a lot of times, like Waimea or Jaws, you can kind of push that seam, you can get underneath it. But at Mavs, there's a certain spot in the wave where you cannot go a foot deeper because the bottom just doesn't let that happen. And it was on that 6th trip that I really figured out the seam.
Every day in Hawaii, animals are mistreated, abandoned, or simply neglected and forgotten. For many of them, the Oahu SPCA is their last hope. At Oahu SPCA, we are committed to a no-kill promise. Here, animals in need receive medical care, shelter, love, and help in finding a forever home. How can you help? Please adopt one of our animals. Use our low-cost veterinary and spay-neuter services. Be a responsible pet owner. And make a donation so that we can do more life-saving work. Help us to reduce euthanasia and give these animals a chance for a better life. All it takes is a monthly or a one-time donation to Oahu SPCA. Please visit us at our new shelter and find your new best friend. The Oahu SPCA, because every life is precious.
If you were to take a same wipeout at Jaws versus Mavericks, I would, in general, just be more scared at Mavericks because it's dark and scary and it's cold and it's like out of a nightmare. The great white sharks and you're in a wetsuit, hoodie and gloves and booties, and you stick your hand underwater and you can't see your hand because there's no visibility. The water's pretty dirty at Mavericks because you're right next to San Francisco. And when I'm underwater in cold, dark water, I just don't want to be underwater. I just want to be above water as quick as I can. It's just not really a pleasant place to be. The rocks at Mavs are actually a lot more tame than the rocks at Jaws. The rocks at Mavs look a lot scarier, and they're a lot more like out of a horror movie in terms of they're like these big, scary, pointy rocks. At Mavericks, it completely depends on the swell direction, because on north swells at Mavericks, usually you won't go to the rocks because it'll push you out of the bowl. Whereas on west swells at Mavericks, they push you straight to the bowl, and they hold you in there, then they'll push you straight to the rocks. The local guys keep telling me at Mavericks, they don't worry about the rocks because they say that once you get so close to the rocks, usually there's a current right along the rocks that rips right out of the rocks. If you go down at Jaws and you take 4 waves in the head, usually 4 is about the number that you're going to the rocks. Jaws, it's really dangerous shore break. Where at Jaws, I think it's a lot more dangerous to be in the rocks than just all around a really bad situation to be in there. So the lead up for these big swells at either Jaws or Mavericks is the same. The only thing different is the equipment that we're bringing with us. I like to dive into my equipment and to really make sure everything's perfectly dialed. I like to make sure I show up with 3 of everything. On top of that, there's the mental state of what kind of shape you feel like you're in. For me, it's the amount of yoga I've done in the previous week, where sometimes if I haven't surfed big waves in a week or 2, I feel like I really need it, and I show up just absolutely wanting it and frothing. Sometimes you want to show up kind of like, it doesn't matter what happens today, I'm happy either way. And it comes down to, it's a balance of wanting it, but not wanting to kill yourself for it, and finding a safe approach. I hadn't had any really major injuries surfing big waves. I had a lot of little things happen in close calls, but I started to almost feel like I was invincible. I started to feel like, well, if I had survived that, I can survive that. And I started to play it off of what I'd done versus like the way the future's gonna play out. And then in Puerto Escondido, I took a really bad wipeout. I got knocked out unconscious and I hurt my shoulder really bad. I was wearing 2 impact suits, so I woke up face up in the surface. And the first thing I thought was, wow, I didn't swim to the surface. And then I tried to move my arm wouldn't move. And I got to the beach and I couldn't figure out what hotel I was in. When I got to my hotel, I couldn't figure out what room I was in. And then 3 months later, I had a frozen shoulder because I pinched the nerves to my shoulder. But the doctor told me, be prepared to never really use your arm the same way again. For me, it was mentally completely game-changing. 6 months later, I finally was starting to feel better. When this winter began, I started out terrified. Like the first Jaws swell of the year was the Piahi Challenge, and I was in the second heat and I paddled out just terrified. Like, wow, like I just want to make good decisions. My whole approach before was just find big waves and you gotta go when you see the good one. Whereas this winter, my approach all of a sudden was like, whoa, there's no need to take unnecessary risks. All I want to do is surf perfect waves. I'm not trying to kill myself. I'm not trying to prove myself. All I want to do is survive the winter and surf as many big waves as I can. One of the hardest things with big waves is to gain momentum, is to get good waves, and the next swell get good waves, and the next swell get good waves. And all of a sudden I went from this injury to gaining momentum. And I felt like, okay, now this season's beginning right for me. I was okay with backing out of waves because if the wave didn't look right, it don't need to go, because there's no reason in ending my winter because of it. Because my ego maybe felt like I paddled for, you gotta go. Everything revolved around risk versus reward. Every swell I paddled out there with the approach of just find perfect waves. I only want to catch waves that I can make. I don't mess with closeouts. I don't go for big ones just because they're big ones anymore. I have no interest in maybe I can make it. Now I only catch waves that I know I can make. And this winter, we've had so many opportunities to surf big waves, whereas every week we've had a really significant swell. It's been the only way to survive the winter, because it's very easy to get hurt on one swell and then lose the whole rest of the year, never mind your life. The reality is, it doesn't matter who you are, it doesn't even take a big wave to really end your life. And would almost be worse than ending your life would be than to end up a vegetable or something. And now this winter, there's been so many guys catching such ridiculously giant waves. A lot of the times there's this fine line between charging hard and charging smart.
Fear is not real. It's the product of thoughts that you create. Danger is very real, but fear is a choice. And as for danger, danger is merely a step to pass by on your way to feeling alive. Come experience Hawaii shark encounters today.
Located on the north shore of Oahu, in the sleepy town of Wailua, is the North Shore Soap Factory, a one-of-a-kind local business that produces quality goods the way they're meant to be made, locally. Come and see an actual working soap factory and watch how our soap is made step by step, right before your eyes. We take pride in our products and help support the community we are so privileged to be a part of. So come on down or order online. We are open 7 days a week.
For the most relaxing and authentic Hawaiian vacation, visit Paradise Bay Resort. Whether you're from the other side of the world or looking for a local getaway, make our paradise yours. Paradise Bay Resort is located on the Kaneohe Bay, which has the largest protected barrier reef of all of the Hawaiian Islands. Experience true Hawaii and make Paradise Bay Resort your home away from home.
Waiting for you in the sleepy town of Wailua on the north shore of Oahu is the best pizza in all of Hawaii. At Jerry's Pizza, it's not just pizza, it's an experience. Come on down and experience Jerry's Pizza for yourself.